welcome to the Jesus Experience Weekly. This is my channel. This is the Soul Filled Gentleman. My name is Shamish, and I got a story for you. Oh man, this one's a little bit awkward. Okay, all right. So the Holy Spirit decided to have a little bit of fun with me and kind of get me out of my comfort zone on another level. So I belong to a gym, and every now and then I do this thing where after a long workout, I go into the sauna. I like to get my sweat on, and I go into the sauna, and I go in for about 20-25 minutes. And for those of you who don't go into the sauna, there's some rules. So first of all, you don't really make eye contact in the sauna. You have to wear at the bare minimum your underwear. Some guys do not abide by this rule. It's just not great. You just keep your eyes up like this when you're in there with those people. Luckily, that wasn't this case, but it's still weird because it's a hot box and you're breathing other people's hot air with you. I like to have headphones. I like to have headphones in so I can't hear myself breathing other people's air. But I went in anyway because I like it when I'm in there by myself. But this time there was someone else in there. So I get in, I have my headphones, and I'm just in my underwear. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Don't make eye contact. I'm just going to close my eyes and I'm going to pray. So I'm like, this is cool. I was like, we got this. I sit in my corner, right? And I kind of like lean back and I put my head back and I'm listening to my music. La, 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 la. Like I'm sweating, but it's kind of dripping into my eyeball. And so I just start talking to God and he says, hey, I open my eye. Here? He goes, yeah. He goes, take out your headphones. I was like, I don't want to take out my headphones. I don't. So I take out my headphones. Boink, boink. Put them in my pocket, right? And I'm like, okay, all right, guy, what's going on? And he said, I need you to talk to this guy. I don't like this. I don't like where this is going at all, God. And he goes, don't care. Talk to the sweaty man in the corner. I don't even know what to talk about. This is so weird. So I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna talk to him. So I look at the guy and he's reading this book and it's Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna talk, God, and I don't want to talk about anything else. And that's the only object that I see that I can talk to with another fellow sweaty man in this sauna. So I'm like, okay, hey, how's the book? And he puts it down. He goes, it's kind of dark. It's a little bit depressing. And I was like, well, okay, tell me about it. I was like, what's going on? So he tells me, he says it's a little bit depressing because these people go through so much. It's a lot about really dark stories, really traumatizing stories, and how big God's mercy is through them, right? But it's dark story after dark story after dark story. It's like if there was a bunch of different versions of like Job, just like, oh my gosh, these people just get, oppressed and tormented and beaten and everything gets stripped from them. And then there's like disease and there's just all these things that just keep happening to these people. It's over and over. And then, God's mercy kind of comes out of it. It was kind of, a depressing book. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And I was like, all right, guy, where's this going? And so he's like, just keep talking. So I keep talking to the guy, and we just kind of start talking about, like church. I was wearing my cross in the sauna, and he saw my cross. He saw my WWJD bracelet, and he was like, hey, do you go to church? And I said, yeah, I go to church. And he goes, cool, And I was like, so what do you do at your church, right? He talked about the ministry that he's a part of. He talked about being with the teenagers and whatnot. He kind of helps with like the youth groups that happen, in the evenings. He has a men's group. It's kind of a newer church, but he found him during COVID. He was looking for a place, and him and his I think him and his wife found this place, and they connected and became part of this church. I was like, cool, man, yeah. So then he asked me, he goes, well, what church do you go to? And I said, well, I go to this place called Rock Family Church. And he goes, oh, I haven't heard of it. And he goes, What denomination is it? Now, I've always struggled with that same question my entire Christian life. Denomination feels like separation to me because there's so many different ones. And denomination to me is interpreted as preference. What's your preference of church? And I was like, hey, God, I don't actually know what to say. I don't know what to say to this man because I don't think we're part of anything like that. And so the Holy Spirit said, hey, I'm going to tell you how to say this because people are going to want to know about you and about where you go and what church you're a part of. I said, okay, lay it on me. So I looked at him and I said, we're not really part of a denomination. We're a church of movement. And I saw his eyes kind of like, what? And I was like, yeah, we're a church of movement. Our pastors challenge us. If you're a benched Christian and you like to kind of sit on the sidelines, you're not going to really fit in at this type of church. We don't really affiliate with a denomination because we're Jesus fed and we're Holy Spirit led. And that is the core of who we are at this church, at this gathering place. And our pastors are just like that everywhere. So it's not a denomination or a preference. We are constantly adapting and changing and listening to the Holy Spirit and where He guides us. I'm still sweaty. I'm still in my underwear, and I'm talking about Jesus and our church. It was so uncomfortable. But the Holy Spirit like dawned on me. He goes, "Hey, that's how you need to talk to people about this because that is who you are. That's why you fit in at this church," he says, because it's not about a denomination, it's not about a preference, it's not about labels, it's not about like these different laws and rules and the way that you do things. It's all about being Holy Spirit led because that's what I called you to do. And you're getting fed by Jesus, right? You're getting fed by this. You're getting fed by the book, by the word. And that's how you get fed. And then the Holy Spirit directs you and puts you on a path and you walk in that direction. And that's who you are. And that's your mission. And that's going to be a real huge part of your ministry and what you do. And it had to happen in a stinking sauna. But the guy was like, oh, really? Like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, yeah. I was like, so if you ever want to come to our men's group, you can come to take a look. And I wanted to invite him. I'm part of a couple different Bible studies. I do men's group on Wednesday evenings. And he was like, okay, yeah. When does it happen? I was like, well, Wednesday. He goes, oh, that's when the youth event happens. Our youth group that night that we help out with can't go. And I was like, oh, I do this thing. It's called Whiskey Night, and it's at one of our distilleries. And me and a couple guys, we have a drink, and we have one Bible verse that we talk about, and then we just kind of fellowship and hang out as men. At the end of the day. And he goes, oh, Thursday, that's when men's group is. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, do you do like Saturday church? He goes, no, we do Sunday. And I was like, okay. Well, if you ever want to come by, it's Rock Family Church. This is a really cool place. So he kind of got a little more interested about men's group, and that's why I kept pushing so hard about it. And he goes, yeah, our men's group, we have a hard time getting guys to come. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, it's a little bit difficult. We only have a handful of guys that actually show up. And he goes, what about your men's group? And I looked at him and I was like, oh, we had like 80 men show up last Wednesday. And his eyes got big. Whoa. He's like, 80 men. I was like, yeah, like 80. And that was short. The tables weren't even full. And he goes, on a Wednesday? I go, yeah, yeah, on a Wednesday. He goes, at night? Like, yep. A lot of them come from work. Like they go directly from work here. They request to come like early. Some people like stop their shift or they take that like as their lunch if they work like a swing shift. Like our guys are on point about coming to this men's group because it's a place of healing. And he was like, whoa. And I got to tell him, I was like, that doesn't even include our married groups. Our married groups are even more on fire about working with their marriage and making it work better and not letting it get torn apart by the world. That there are people who are waiting outside of the married group room for someone to be like a no-show so they can take their place. And the guy was just like dumbfounded, like, what? Like these people they're so hungry for what's going on there. And I'm like, yeah, dude, this is what a church of movement does. Yeah, when there's a real church of movement, I was like, people can't get enough, especially the ones who want to see that change, who want to be part of that mission. And I was like, dude, you got to come. I was like, I'm not trying to take you from your church or anything like that. I was like, but if you haven't seen a church in movement before, this is a spot. This is where you got to go. So, we ended our conversation, and I think he was trying to get out of there, and it was a little bit of an awkward, like, departure. But I got in my truck, and that's always when the Holy Spirit likes to reveal why he, had me do something. And he goes, "Hey, now you know what you belong to. Now you know how to say it, how to tell people what you're doing, because you're not part of a label. You're part of a movement. You're part of what I'm doing in this area with these people, with this church, this community, with these men. You're part of movement. You're not part of this, like, denomination or these laws or these rules." He goes, "Now you know how to tell people who you are and what you belong to." I was like, "In a sauna? Why the sauna?" He said, "Because you can talk to people in the absolute most vulnerable state that you've ever been in, which is sweaty, smelly, almost naked, to a complete stranger in a hot box that was like 120 degrees or whatever it was." I was like, "Yeah, cool. Let's not let's not do that anymore." So that was my Jesus moment this week. Thanks for joining. Can't wait to share with you the next thing that happens.